If hard work was all it took, wouldn't you already be at the top of your game? Wealthy, fulfilled, thriving, a billionaire? Think about it. Why is the exhaustion treated like a badge of honor? Why do you keep trusting advice from those who aren't living the life that you want? I went from grinding 70 hours a week to working less than 40 hours a week with better results, more income, and actual peace. See, that Mercedes G-Wagon that you want so bad, the person who can afford it multiple times over, that's the goal. Welcome to the High Vibe Shift, the show that helps entrepreneurs align their mindset, energy, and systems for unstoppable growth. I'm Anthony Enning, and if you're ready to reprogram your unconscious mind and raise your vibe, you're in the right place. Let's get real for a second. If hard work was all it took, wouldn't you already be at the top of your game? Wealthy, fulfilled, thriving, a billionaire? Think about it. How many people do you know who are working themselves to the bone but not getting ahead? How many families do you see where both partners are scrambling day and night just to keep the lights on, sacrificing time with their own children just to break even? If hustle alone held the keys to the kingdom, why aren't the hardest workers the happiest, the healthiest, the wealthiest? Have you ever watched your parents, maybe even your grandparents, break their backs for decades only to end up tired, aged beyond their years, and sometimes without the security or even the peace that you know that they deserved? Didn't they follow that same good old standard advice? Put your head down, grind, keep the faith, and eventually, it'll all pay off. Why? Just why then does it look like some people just walk into rooms and attract opportunities as almost like it's magic, while others are out there running themselves empty, just working themselves to the bone? Have you met people who show up late, barely sweat, and yet doors just fly open for them? Have you ever asked yourself how someone can disappear for weeks on vacations and then come back and be further ahead than the ones who were in the office working their tails off day in and day out? Look, I started off my career believing in the grind. I hustled, I listened to all the advice, outwork everyone and you'll get noticed. Like you got to want it as bad as you want to breathe, right? But after years of being the first to arrive and the last to leave, what did I really have to show for it? Bills, stress, an impending sense that something just wasn't adding up. Why should the scoreboard keep moving further and further away the harder you chase it? Why is the exhaustion treated like a badge of honor when all it really is, honestly, is just something that's keeping you stuck? Have you ever had a moment, maybe in the break room at midnight, maybe in your car on the way home, where you just ask yourself, is this all that there is to life? Is this really worth it? Are you tired of sacrificing your sleep, your health, and time with those that you truly love, believing, honestly hoping that this kind of loyalty will be rewarded? I did too. Let me ask you this. Is the work harder mantra really serving you? Or is it just distracting you from your intuition, that gut feeling that you know that you need to be doing something different? Are you laboring for your legacy or just trying to stay afloat? Why do you keep trusting advice from those who aren't living the life that you want? Are your dreams growing bigger or is your spirit shrinking with every year that you spend grinding? Are you more excited to wake up or are you craving weekends just to recover, not live? And if you're an entrepreneur, I want to remind you that the reason why you got into this lifestyle was because that's how your old life was. And you wanted to create a new life for yourself. Yet here you are. So why is it that every time you try to slow down, that guilt creeps in? You know that feeling, right? Who taught you that your worth is measured by your exhaustion, right? Do you fear what might happen if you let go just a little bit to your business? Or is it even scarier to imagine living like this for another year or even another decade? What if your value was never about the hours that you put in, but the frequency that you embodied? What if the game is less about how hard you push and more about how open you're becoming in your life? What if it's about your identity? Do you think that maybe, just maybe, you're not as far from your breakthrough as you think? You're just possibly going in the wrong direction. Maybe the direction that you're in right now isn't suiting you for who you want to be long term. And you just have to go in a completely different direction. Today is the day that you're going to be honest. You don't have to be honest with the world. You don't have to put this on social media. Just honest with yourself. So just pause. Ask yourself, am I trading my life for a story that was never mine? Am I addicted to the struggle? Or am I ready to shift into something new? Why not believe, just for a moment, that there is another way? That those who seem to have it all know a secret. Alignment, not effort, is the multiplier. Wouldn't you at least want to try life on those terms? Because, hey, if it could work for somebody else, I can almost guarantee you it could work for you. As long as you're in alignment with who it is that you truly are meant to be. Because honestly, aren't you tired, truly tired of being tired? Because on the other side of all these whys is a truth that can change everything forever. All you need is enough courage to say, I'm ready for something different, something more, something like who I truly am. Look, when I first stepped into real estate, I believed in one thing above all else: the grind. Sales, I was told, was a numbers game. You show up early, you stay late, you knock on more doors, you make more calls, you send more emails, you outwork everyone, and the results will come. And for 3 long years, I bought that story. Hard, super hardcore. I'd be the first one in the office and the last one out. I'd skip lunch to follow up on leads. Matter of fact, I skipped breakfast. I would be in the office at 7 a.m. before the receptionist came, and I would check the call log to see everyone that called after 5 and call them before the receptionist called them. That's how dedicated I was. I'd work weekends while everyone else was relaxing, and I was proud of it. I wore that badge because that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to prove your worth through sacrifice, through sweat, through sheer willpower. You'll actually make it, right? But honestly, the real truth was no matter how hard I was working, the ceiling never budged. And I was stuck, y'all, financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And the scariest part, I didn't know why or how to get out of it. I thought I was doing everything right, but honestly, I was barely surviving. Then came the moment that changed everything. I switched companies. Honestly, I was let go and I had to find a new one. It was a new environment, new energy, and for the first time, I was actually seeing what real success looked like up close. There were people in my office, millionaires, who I barely ever saw at their desks. And when I did see them, they were relaxed, laughing, living up life to the fullest, y'all. I'm talking vacations. Their kids were going to the best schools. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I remember watching one of them walk in around 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Coffee in their hand, no stress, no urgency. They checked a few things, they made a couple calls, they were out by noon drinking. And meanwhile, I had been there since 6 a.m., opening all the emails, responding to everybody, prepping all my listings, chasing every lead, and I was dead broke, y'all. Dead broke. And that contrast hit me like a freight train. I realized I'd been running full speed in the wrong direction. But the real wake up call, and this is a moment of vulnerability for me, y'all, because this is so embarrassing that honestly, I thought I would never tell this story, but I know that I need to share this with somebody who might be going through the same thing. The real wake up call came on Valentine's Day. I was so broke, y'all, but I was dating my now wife, then girlfriend, and I wanted to do something special. But after weeks of working nonstop, early mornings, late nights, skipping meals, skipping all the fun stuff. I checked my bank account and man, it was overdraft. Not just low, y'all, negative. I mean, like I can't even act like I have something in there. It would say declined. Less than zero. I felt so embarrassed, so ashamed as a man, so frustrated, so crushed by the realization that all my efforts, all the things I'd been sacrificing for, leaving my career in engineering to go about my life as an entrepreneur, I was a failure. But as I left that office that evening, I saw something I'd never seen before, a $20 bill just laying on the ground. And this was like 2019. So I was just sitting there and I got this message from the universe. So I picked it up. We went to the movies and it was all that I could afford, but we had a great time. We watched the movies. It was a Tuesday. AMC had this special. But as I was sitting in that theater, I made a decision. I couldn't keep doing this. The hustle wasn't working. And the advice I'd been following, work harder, grind more, push through, want it as bad as you can breathe, and all that stuff, it was just leading me nowhere. No disrespect to anybody who follows that advice. I just knew that I had to change my direction, not just my strategy, but my entire identity. See, around that same time, I came across this book called The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And the core message to that book was to focus on the one thing that you can do such that everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. And honestly, that was such a new concept to me because why would I just do one thing, right? I'm intelligent enough to do multitude of things, but that wasn't the message that I needed to be following. That concept felt so foreign, almost dangerous to me because I had been taught that doing more was always the answer, but I was desperate for a new direction in life. And that desperation always has a way of making you open to what you've been resisting. So I did something I hadn't done in a long time and I acted on faith. I hired my first assistant. And I'll be honest with y'all, I was so terrified. I was already struggling financially. And now I was going to pay someone. It felt financially irresponsible and reckless. But here's what happened. Instead of losing money, I actually started to make more money than I ever had made in my entire career. Y'all, I think more might be an understatement. I actually began winning awards for what I was doing. And suddenly, I wasn't drowning in that admin work. I wasn't burning hours on tasks that drained me. I had time and energy to focus on what I did best. And that's when the truth landed. Hustle wasn't the secret, alignment was, leverage was, identity was. See, my mindset shifted from what do I need to do to who do I need on my team. And that single shift by itself unlocked everything. You see, once I embraced this new paradigm, everything started to change. Not just in my business, but in how people saw me and how I, most importantly, saw myself. See, people noticed that I had a team, meaning I wasn't a small time player anymore. And they saw I had systems. They realized I wasn't playing small anymore and I was betting the house on my future. I was building something real. And that credibility attracted better clients, bigger opportunities, and deeper trust. You see, that shift wasn't about the external as much as it was about me. Because more than that, I really started to trust myself again. I stopped doing that whole fake confidence thing and I really started to embody it. I stopped trying to do everything and I started becoming the person who could lead everything. I knew that I had a vision and I knew that I had all the skills that I needed in me to do the things that I wanted to do. Because the reality is this: employees, they hustle, but CEOs, who I was becoming, they strategize. And the moment I stepped into that CEO role, not just in the title, but in the energy, my results skyrocketed. I went from grinding 70 hours a week just to stay afloat to working less than 40 hours a week with better results, more income, and actual peace. Y'all, I woke up one morning unencumbered by debt and all of the things I had been believing for so long, and I felt so light. And I realized that this wasn't about working less just for the sake of it. It was about working right, right in alignment with who I was actually becoming, not who I'd been conditioned to believe that I needed to be. And y'all, the proof came so fast. Within months of hiring that first assistant, I started winning awards at my company, not because I was working harder, because the reality was I wasn't, but because I was working smarter, clearer, and more aligned with who I truly was. Then I had the opportunity I had never seen before, the largest commercial real estate deal I'd ever worked on. And if I closed this, it would net me over six figures in commissions. So when I actually did, I told my mentor about it. And you know what their first advice was? It wasn't, oh, make sure you take 10%, invest it in your marketing, or, oh, go and buy this new tool or CRM. It wasn't hustle harder. It was hire a great team. See, that was all the confirmation that I needed to know that I was moving in the right direction. Because, see, success isn't about what you do, it's about who you're becoming. And who you become is shaped by who you surround yourself with. Because here's the reality, when you get a big win, a win that can change your life, most people think about what they can buy, right? Was that car, that house, that watch, those external things. But those are just markers, symbols. They don't actually mean anything if you don't shift your identity to match what that is that you want to become. Because that identity is truly what embodies that income. Have you ever wondered why basketball players go broke after being in the league and making millions of dollars? Have you looked at what their identity is after the league? You see, if you don't change who you are at your core, you'll just cycle back into the same struggles, different packaging, but the same frequency. See, that Mercedes G Wagon that you want so bad, or that super nice supercar, whatever it is, the person who can afford it multiple times over, that's the goal. The identity, the energy, the embodiment of that identity, not that certain amount of income that you need to pay for it that one time. And when I finally understood that, everything started to click. See, my income grew as my stress was dropping, and my relationships were deepening because my fulfillment was expanding. I wasn't just making more money, I was actually living out my true identity at my core. I was living more fully. So, what does playing the right game look like for me today? It looks nothing like what it used to look like. All that hustle and grind stuff, I don't do that stuff, right? It's not about faking success. It's actually about being somebody who is actually successful. You see, most people think about winning the lottery and they imagine all of these things, these material things that they would buy. And look, sure, that's fun to imagine. I love it. Imagination is something that we need to have more as adults, but they actually rarely imagine the kind of person that they need to become to sustain that level of wealth, to actually manage it, to multiply it, to steward it wisely. See, there are two scenarios. Scenario A, you're just focused on the competition, the standard person. You're thinking about tactics and trade secrets and hacks, and you're trying to beat somebody else, right? You're just looking at everybody else as the person that you need to conquer to actually achieve the goal that you want. But scenario B, you're actually focused on yourself, the person that's looking back at you in the mirror. And you're asking yourself, who do I need to become to achieve what I want? You're playing a game of evolution and not competition. And honestly, in both of those scenarios, scenario B wins every time, hands down. Because when you focus on who you're becoming, the outcomes take care of themselves. You want that G Wagon? That's perfectly fine when you're the CEO of a company that affords you the opportunity to buy whatever vehicle that you want to have. So by now, you understand that identity is what you need to actually shift. And this is all great and dandy until you finish watching this video and you don't actually have anything actionable. So I'm going to share with you something that has helped to change my life in many ways. But if you're watching this, you have to promise to actually enact this in your life. If you are not going to take this serious at all, just skip to the next video, skip to the next podcast, because this is actionable items and you want to be in the state of action when you're listening to what I'm about to tell you. It will change your life. And if you don't take action on what I'm telling you, you're only going to say, oh, I know, right? You don't want to be the person who just says, oh, I know, right? You want to actually be the person who's embodying what it is. So let's get into the state where you are actually about to receive something that's going to change your life because you are now open to a new reality. So I'm going to share with you a simple 3-step process that I do every day to actually get myself into the state where I'm shifting my identity more and more into the identity that I truly want to embody. Because just because you've achieved goals or just because you've gotten to a certain level of success in your life doesn't mean that you should remain stagnant. If anything, that should motivate you to do even more change work to improve the version of yourself so that you can always be growing. This universe that we're living in, this world that we're living in, this life that we're living in is constantly expanding, constantly growing. So if you are not doing what it takes to grow, you're always going to be in a state of regression. With that being said, let's lock in on the 3 practices that will shift your frequency starting right now. First thing, every morning, and honestly, if you want to take it up an ante, every night, but every morning before you pick up your phone or you face the world, find a mirror. Okay, you want to stand in front of your reflection. No filters, no armors, ladies, no makeup, just you. Look into your own eyes, hold that gaze, even if it feels awkward, even if your mind starts racing. Because this is not about vanity or self judgment, it's about presence. It's about, can you be present with yourself? Now, speak your identity into existence out loud. Today, I lead with alignment. I am worthy of ease. I attract support. I receive new solutions. I am available for abundance. And you want to say it until something cracks open in you, even if it's just a whisper of belief at first. If resistance shows up, honor it. That's a sign that old programming is getting cleared out. Let that mirror become a portal from self doubt to self trust, from hiding into honoring. And you want to stay there present for at least a full minute, longer if you can. And you want to end by saying, I trust myself. I am the one. I love myself. This pouring into yourself is going to work wonders as you do this more and more. But let's move on to the second step, which is the receiving part of it. Okay. Right after your mirror work, you want to sit quietly with your palms open, ready for all the downloads that you're going to get. You want to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and call into mind one thing that you're inviting in today. You want to picture receiving it, whether it's a call, a client, a peaceful interaction, the answer to a question that you've been looking for. Don't just visualize it, actually feel it, right? Let your body imagine that it's already real. And you want to speak out loud, I receive with ease. I accept support from seen and unseen sources. I allow abundance in expected and unexpected ways. And you want to hold that attitude, even if your analytical mind tries to butt in. Because gratitude in advance is the hack. See, true receivers are thankful before they see the proof. Let a smile come in if you can, right? Release the how, the when, the need to figure it all out, because honestly, you never will. And you want to walk forward, trusting that what seeks you finds you, because you finally let yourself be available and open to the opportunities that are coming into your life. And the third step, which is the most important and pivotal part, but also the most simple part, which can be overlooked, is to keep a positive attitude. Because as you move throughout your day, you want to protect your frequency like your income depends on it. Because honestly, it does, right? This is the high vibe shift. And every time a negative thought, a fear, or a doubt tries to hijack your mind, pause. Notice it. Don't judge it. Don't start to berate yourself. Just acknowledge that that is old programming. Then replace it immediately with a higher thought of vibration. And instead of this isn't working, say, I'm being redirected to something better, right? Instead of saying, I can't afford this, say, resources are aligning for me now. Instead of, I'm so behind, say, I'm exactly where I need to be so that I can get to where I'm going in life, right? Because, see, your attitude is your altitude. And every moment you choose faith over fear, gratitude over complaining, and alignment over anxiety, you are rewiring your energetic signature. The universe doesn't respond to your circumstances, it responds to your vibration, right? The high vibe shift, right? Keep it high, keep it intentional, and keep it unshakable. Even when life tests you, that's when your positive attitude becomes your superpower, right? All of this stuff is great to know in theory. Putting it into action, that is what is going to allow you to change your life. Do this every morning for the next 30 days and watch how, as you see yourself differently, you receive openly and you guard that attitude fiercely. The world will start to honestly just meet you with that new frequency. It will give you everything that is in resonance with who you are becoming because it's not about that outer grind, but it's that inner gaze. The open hands signify your openness to change, and that unshakable mindset will honestly get you to where you need to truly be for the long term, right? Look, what if you gave yourself permission to receive, not just pursue? What if for the first time you let go of the story that struggle earns your worth and you actually opened up to the reality that ease is your birthright? Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow and your first move isn't how much do I have to grind, but how free can I allow myself to be? Your mirror, your morning ritual, they become portals to a completely different reality. And instead of staring at your flaws, you see possibility. And instead of bracing for chaos, you tune into peace and let abundance meet you right where you actually are. What would happen if you approached every client, every deal, every creative project, not from this energy of having to survive, but from a place of quiet certainty? What if you started attracting the relationships that match your new vibration? The team, the partners, the clients who see the real you and celebrate your expansion. What if your life is actually meant to be lived? What if every time you caught yourself spiraling into doubt, you paused, smiled, and said, I choose my frequency. I choose my future. I choose to receive more with less force. Because while hustle exhausts, alignment multiplies. Imagine gifting yourself starting today with enough calm and clarity to see opportunities others miss. To see what if abundance, health, and inspiration became normal simply because you kept your vibe high and your intentions clear. And that's not just conjecture, these aren't just postulates. There are entrepreneurs, leaders, artists right now who made this shift and watched every area of their lives transform. They stopped letting outer conditions dictate their inner peace and they started letting the peace that they have within them to shape their results. So, what if you now stopped playing that old game and started living in a new one? What if you let yourself become unrecognizable to your past in the best way possible? Here's your invitation. If you're ready to embody this shift in community with support, coaching, and high frequency allies, join us in the High Vibe Shift Collective on School. Step into your next chapter surrounded by people who refuse to settle for struggle and choose expansion every day. Raise your vibe, raise your income. This is the High Vibe Shift. Thanks for tuning in to the High Vibe Shift. If this episode raised your frequency, share it with someone who needs the shift too. And remember, raise your vibe, raise your income.